And what we're going to talk about today is probably, maybe it's one of the most important parts of the program, but definitely this is the part which is talking about your placement. And so we're going to talk about schools, okay? So orientation number 2, we're going to talk about schools in Spain. And I imagine that they're going to be quite different from your own experience in schools. And you will find that out. We're going to look at some of the different types of schools. We're going to look at the schools that you're in and some of the specific features of those schools and maybe help you to find out a few things. Now, remember, if you do have a question, put it in the chat box. And as we get to the end of each section, if there's a chance, then I will answer your questions. Maybe some of you can answer each other's questions, which is absolutely fine. And I'm sure Sam will be able to answer some of the questions too. Okay, so anything you want to write down as a question, please do so in the chat box. You'll be very welcome. So all our placements in Spain at the moment are with schools. And this is the agreement. This is what schools offer. And this is what schools do. So if a school comes to us and says, yes, we would like a volunteer, then we say, right, you, the school, must provide a host family. And a lot of the time we are asked, you know, what do we know about the host families? Do we go and check them out? Well, normally, in fact, I would say 99% of the time, the school's family, sorry, the host family are either teachers at the school or they have children at the school. It would not be normal, it would not be logical for us to have families who are not connected very closely to the school. So we know the people through the school, and it is the school who selects the families because they know that they are able to give you a room, that they are economically able to feed you, and that they're a good, stable family who are going to help you. The schools will also offer you a placement. So that is defined as being a language assistant or an assistant teacher to help the main teacher. Normally it's the English teacher. We will see that sometimes it's not the English teacher, and that's something we're going to see today. The school will provide you with a timetable. It might be a timetable for the whole time you're here, or it might change each week. They will also help you to learn Spanish. Sometimes you might have a tutor at the school who teaches you some Spanish, or sometimes it will be somebody at the school who is just going to help you. They might invite you into some of the lower level Spanish classes. They will also provide you and designate a tutor. So that person is your contact. And that is the person you go to if you get any kind of problems. They will also provide you with local information. So that means easy information about how you get around in the city, if there are buses, if there are trains, things you can do if you wanted to join a sports club, if you wanted to go to the swimming pool or the gym, or if you wanted to meet people. And finally is what we call goodwill. Goodwill just means that they're going to be positive and they're going to be kind. The goodwill cannot be quantified, you know, so how much goodwill, but we expect them to show you lots of goodwill. Okay, so it's some really, really good. Okay, really, really positive feedback and positive information. Okay, and now you as volunteers, okay, and you as volunteers will be at the school in class 15 to 18 hours a week. So that's 18 hours for the VIA volunteers and 15 hours for our other volunteers. We also want you to come with ideas. Lots of really good, creative ideas. Language, obviously, this is the most important thing, whether it's English language in most of our schools, or German language, like in Leliana or in Corazonistas in Vitoria, where they specifically want you to speak German, right? They will also ask you to help with English. But we want you to come and help with the language classes. And again, I've put in more ideas. It was so important I put it in twice. We'll look in a moment what kind of ideas we expect you to come with. Again, goodwill, okay? And goodwill means being patient, being flexible, accepting that sometimes there might be changes in the timetable, okay? So it's not just saying, you know, I am here for 15 hours a week, I will not do anything else, all right? Or if the school says to you, would you like to come to the swimming competition? Or would you like to come to the music festival? You can, of course. I will know that's not my job. But I don't think you'd be very popular, okay, if they asked you to participate in some other activity. Engagement, and that's a really important thing. I might say engagement is very similar to goodwill and having a proactive attitude. But engagement means that you interact with the school, with the teachers, with the children, with the parents, okay? That you are going to communicate with them in class and out of class. One of the things you'll notice, Sam, tell us, when you're engaging with students, how common is it that you see your students, kids from the school, out of school? Did you ever see them around Vitoria?
Yeah, we definitely did.
We did.
I don't know, 5 or 6 times or so. Me and Charlotte.
Okay, and what did you do?
You'd bump into them.
What was their reaction when they saw you?
Oh, like a celebrity. They're quite excited.
Okay, like a celebrity. And so what did you do? Did you act like a celebrity? Like, leave me alone, leave me alone.
I mean, I guess like the popularity is nice to enjoy, but yeah, I'd just be like, oh, how are you? They were always with their parents more or less, so you just say hi to their parents. But I mean, yeah, it was quite brief.
Absolutely. So that engagement, obviously for the kids from the school, if they see you in the street, they're really excited and they really want to show their parents that, you know, you're their friend and you remember them, right? So, of course,
Totally.
yeah, just, you know, being polite and saying hello, absolutely fine, good. And then having, again, the proactive attitude, which is also about ideas. So if you hear that there's a musical festival and you, I know, you know, you play the guitar, for example, then, you know, find the music teacher and make an offer. Say, well, listen, there's a school concert. You know, I could play the piano, I could sing a song, of course, if you know how to do these things. Okay, so that's what we mean. So this is the agreement. Okay, this is the agreement. Okay, And let me ask you some questions then. Can't really see that, can we? It's too bad. Okay, your school. There we go. So here we are, some schools. Okay, some questions about schools. Okay, I'm going to ask you 4 questions. I'm going to put you into little groups. I want you to discuss this. So we're going to use a feature here on Zoom, which is called the breakout rooms. So I'm going to put you into 3 groups. Okay, I'm going to put you into 3 groups. In a moment, you're going to be asked to leave our meeting and you will go into a smaller room. And I want you to discuss 4 questions together. First of all, my first question is, why did you choose a volunteer post at a school? So why did you choose a school to come and do your volunteer placement? The second question I want you to think about and to discuss with your friends, with your colleagues, is think of your last school. I know a lot of you have just left school. What did you like best about your school? What was the best thing about your school? I also want you to discuss with your friends in your little rooms, what don't you like about school? What are some of the things of being in school which bring some negative feelings for you? Okay. And finally, I want you to discuss this question. Why do schools want you? Why do the schools want a volunteer? Okay. So those are the 4 questions which I will be asking you. Okay. So I'm going to put you in room 3. All right. Lovely. But I'm going to put you in room 1. Okay, good. So we've got 3 rooms. We've got Alexis, Clara, Lena, and Paola. Then we've got Nelly, Sam, Sarah. And then we've got Reiki, Tammy, Sarah, and Tammy. So there's 2 of you in there. Okay. So I'm going to leave the rooms open. Let me see. I'm going to leave the rooms open for a few minutes, right? And I will ask you to join your room. Okay, so go into your room and I will remind you of the questions. So please go into your rooms when you can. Okay. That's great. So interesting. Okay. And Clara, tell us, what did you like best about your school, about your high school?
My school was not too big. We were like, I don't know, 500 something students and about 50 teachers. So there was a big chance that you knew most of the teachers already when you were like at the beginning of the school year. And all in all, it was a very cozy, familiar environment. And also, I lived very close to the school. I had like few minutes to walk on foot, and that's it. So I could always sleep very late. But other than that, I also had really nice teachers, and our classes also weren't like too big. So yeah, I'd say just the, I don't know, friendly environment.
Yeah, brilliant. And Sarah, Sarah Oschek, so what things would be negative? What things don't you like about school, or what would make a school a not nice place to be in?
I think it would be teachers that are way too strict or that are in a way maybe abusing their power in a way that they have. Also, other students that are mean or not nice for no reason. That's what comes to my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. And Sarah Schauf, what do you think? What other things that's important about the teachers and the teachers' attitude? What other things do you think would make your time at school a negative experience?
If they are not fair to other students, if they are embarrassing students in front of class. I also had that in my school, and it was a bad experience for all of us. Also, if they are having their favorite students, it also deals with being unfair. And maybe just doing nothing to build a stable team, like in the class, if they are having a bad community in class and the teachers do nothing to support it, to change something, maybe because it's kind of part of their responsibility to also check on the social level on the students. So
absolutely. So a lot of time, the attitude of the teachers, not only at school, but what happens to the children outside of school. That's a really important aspect. Yeah. So a lot of things you're talking about there, about respect, about, living and working and being together and making sure there's a certain amount of harmony. But definitely you've spoken about the atmosphere between different people, the students and the teachers, and some kind of harmony, which is important. Okay. And why do schools want you? Why do schools want a volunteer? Tammy, what do you think? Why do they want you to come?
I think it's very good for the cultural exchange and for the support. And also, I think it's for the children way more friendly to learn from another person who isn't like a real teacher, but like someone who speaks the language pretty well.
Yeah, that's great. That's true. And Ricky, Tammy. So what and why do you think that schools want you?
I think maybe for the cultural exchange, and then also because of our language knowledge.
Brilliant. And I think that what a really important thing it is first and foremost, they want you because of the language aspect. Yeah. But actually, I think the cultural aspect is something that you can bring in. We're going to look at some ways of doing that. So that's one of the things that you can be proactive and you can introduce, because it's very important for students and for young people to understand some of the differences and some of the similarities of young people in different countries. I'm going to ask Sam to give us tell us, Sam, in your experience, what was the main difference between school in your country, in New Zealand, and school as you've seen it in Spain?
Okay. I think, like, the thing is, they were very similar in many ways. I think in New Zealand, it wasn't too different, like the classes and the structure of the days. Probably a big thing is just that the school day was longer. It went to 4:30 instead of 3. But also maybe like the teachers and the students, their sort of ways of thinking are a bit different. like I'll explain it the best that I can. Um, I don't know. I don't know really know how to say it, but I would say it was just like the teachers. Maybe things are a lot less like personal.
Mhm.
They have all these relations with the kids, but then they kind of like just go on with their day. But then, like in New Zealand, teachers would like you maybe be a bit more friendly with them. Like they would ask a lot about like what you're doing outside of school, like how's
Okay.
your sports going, or yeah.
Okay.
But that could also just be the school I went to. But I think, yeah, I reckon in more ways than not, it was similar.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's possible. Actually, Sam went to a school which was trying very hard to be like, you know, like an international school, wasn't it? It was trying to create a new environment of being
That's
very
true.
dynamic. Maybe it didn't quite get there, right?
Nah, there was, yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess they didn't quite have the resources as such.
Hmm.
Not that the school's like poor, but
Yeah.
like, it was just, well, they had iPads, but yeah.
Okay. All right, great. Well, now let's talk about the specifics of the Spanish education system, if there is such a thing. Okay, if you look at this map, you can see that Spain is split up into 17 autonomous regions, which is quite a lot for a small country. Okay, so we've got Madrid, and then we've got Seville, well, Andalusia in the south, and of course the Canary Islands and the Balearic Islands, and then Catalonia, where Barcelona is, and there's the Valencia region, and then there's the Basque country, and then there's all these little funny ones like Navarra and Cantabria and Asturias and Murcia. Okay, and then Madrid has got its own one, and La Rioja, which is where they make all the wine, that's its own little region. So it turns out that the 17 different regions have actually got 17 educational ministries. So each region is a little bit different from the next region. And that's why you have 17 different curriculum or study plans. So each region can decide if they want to have more history or more English or dedicate more money for children to do sport, or if they have what we call their co-official languages. There are 4 co-official languages in Spain, which is the Catalan language in Catalonia, near Barcelona, the Valencian language, which is in Valencia, the Basque language, which is in the Basque country, and the Galician or Gallego language, which is in the northwest of Spain. So in those 4 regions, that's Galicia, the Basque country, Catalonia, and Valencia, and also the Balearic Islands, which are connected, let's say, by their language to Catalonia, you will find that some of the teaching is done in the regional language. Okay, and therefore, this means that the whole curriculum is quite different. It's quite different because the emphasis is different. Everybody in Spain speaks Spanish. Everybody in Spain speaks Spanish, but in those regions, they might also speak their other official language. But that is definitely very, very that influences the way that schools work. Okay? And of course, we have 17 different school calendars. Like we said yesterday, if we look at this, we said that this is for Castilla and Leon. This is where Nele is going and Clara is going and Alexis is going. You look at those holidays. But if you are in Valencia in the month of March, you would have 2 whole weeks off because your vacations would start on the 16th of March. So this whole week there is also a holiday. So that's just regional differences, and those are things which you might see, okay? You definitely will see. But it does mean that sometimes when you're planning to travel with other volunteers, maybe you have to check with them to see exactly where you're going to be, okay, or when they have their holidays. Okay. Sarah, your hand is up.
Yeah, I also checked it out on the calendar of my school, and the days were a bit different, the holidays.
And where is your
Like
school?
in Vitoria-Gasteiz.
In Vitorias, that's the Basque country. So your school, I bet you have more holidays at the end of April, don't you?
It can be, I think I have in the beginning of April, May more.
Okay, so in Vitoria,
Check.
in that particular city, in that province of the Basque country, they have their local holidays in April. So you have an extra week off. Okay.
Okay.
And
Okay.
some years,
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, sorry.
No, depending on when Easter is, if Easter's a bit before or a bit afterwards, you might find in that particular city, children only have 1 week of school in the month of April, because they then have the rest of their local or provincial or municipal holidays, okay? So those are some of the differences we'll see in the school. Now, particularly, I think the person who will notice the biggest difference is Tammy, who's going to be in the town called Ibarra, which is up in the north, up in the mountains in the Basque country. It's going to be very, very interesting for you. I will explain why in a moment, okay? But it is mainly because of the language. Okay.
I didn't. Do you have a word?
Sorry? Nope. Okay. All right. There we go. And now the kind of school stages, where you will be working, well, actually, okay, so normally we work with the nursery, or what they call in Spanish, infantil, okay, infantil. And these are CIEPs or CEIPs, which is children, infants and primary school, okay. These actually go from 3 till 6, but this year they have been introduced from 1 and 2. Okay, they tend to have large class groups, and development is all about language and counting and numbers. Okay, you will notice that in Spanish schools, exams start almost from the age of 6 or 7. Children are constantly given exams to do. And so therefore, children become very nervous and very tense when it comes to doing exams. And it's always tests and exams and tests and exams. With the fantastic, of course, with the fantastic exception of Nele, and probably Clara, because you're going to what they call rural schools, which is a CRA, which are not exam-based at all, which really, they're an older model of school, but where children of different ages work together. So actually, the emphasis is more on collaboration, on cooperation. So if you're in those two, which is in Tabara or in Campos, those are absolutely fantastic schools. You will love them. They're very different. We then have 6 to 11 years, which are the primary school years. Some schools are designated as bilingual centres, and the bilingual centres mean that some of the other subjects are also given in English. So English is a subject, but you might see that other subjects like art or music or geography are given in English too. I've got here that we have an aging teaching population. And it is true that teachers in Spain, sometimes they're quite old, okay? You would expect maybe to see younger people work in a primary school, not necessarily in Spain. And the bigger the place, the bigger the city, the older the teachers. Okay, there's just something which happens in Spain. And then from 11 to 18 years, we have the secondary schools, or what they call the Instituto. Everybody has to stay at school from 11 to 16 years of age, and that's what they call the first to fourth year of the ESO, or the secondary education. And then students can go into vocational training or university preparation courses. There's a lot more English in secondary school, and it really is a very, very important subject for students. German tends to be the second language option, and many schools have no second language option. Okay, they only have English, and that's it. Okay. The schools have mixed ability groups, so we don't have, group A with the very good students, group B with the medium students, and group C with the weaker students. Everybody's mixed together, and classes can be quite big. Okay, so 30 students is the norm. It's absolutely normal there. If I asked you, what age group do you prefer to work with? Nelly, what age group do you prefer to work with?
I think I would prefer to work with the younger kids, like primary school or nursery.
Any reason for that?
I think it's easier to work with those children when the age gap is bigger.
That's true. But can anybody think of any reason why sometimes it's nicer to work with the older children, with the teenagers?
I could add something here.
Yeah.
So, in London, I did a month-long summer school, and it was students aged from about 14 to 19. And what I really enjoyed about working with them is you can hear a lot about their life and what it's like growing up where they're from, because we had students from like Italy, Uruguay, and even Turkey. So I think I would now prefer working with the older students. I did the younger students in input, which was it is easier, and I guess they'll listen to you if you talk straight to them. But I guess, yeah, it's quite different.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, so with the older students, you can interact a bit more and actually have real communication, right? Whereas with younger students, you tend to have a kind of limited It's a limited conversation because their experiences are limited as well, because they're young children. Of course, that's true. Yeah, that's true. However, some of the schools, some of the secondary schools will not let you interact with their oldest students, who might be 17 or 18, because they don't want you to be friends, okay? They don't want you to become friends with the students. They want you to keep your friendships out of the school, particularly in Vitoria, okay? So Sarah, who's going to Corazonistas, they're very strict about not having friends from the school. But don't worry, you'll make friends elsewhere. Okay, and the schools themselves, we've got four kinds of schools. We're going to talk specifically now about 3, and the next slide we'll talk about 4, and then we're going to take a 2-minute break, okay? Because somebody is coming to pick something up, okay? So here we go. So the educational centres may be public. They're state-owned, run and funded by the government, by the regional government. There is no religion in these schools. They do not teach religion, and they have no religious practices. The teaching content is determined by the regional government, and the timetable tends to be from 9 o'clock until 2 o'clock when they are public centres. And at 2 o'clock, they close. Finished. Enough. No more. That school is then closed until the following day at 9 o'clock. And I will tell you, with some of the public schools, the teachers will arrive at 1 minute before 9 o'clock, and they will leave at 2 o'clock or 1 minute after 2. They will not be there any other time. Okay? And this is, what's the drawback of this? The drawback of this, the disadvantage, is that the school is only a place to go to class. And it does not have any other responsibility about the students' well-being, about offering them things like sports. So that is the minimum basic. If you're going to one of the CRAs in Tabara or campus, you will find that this is not necessarily the case, because they have a different model. The concertado are what we call charter schools. The charter schools are older schools, and they tend to be faith-based. In Spain, this means they are Catholic, so they are Christian. And if you go into one of the concertado schools, you'll see there's a picture of the Virgin Mary and Jesus, and there's a crucifix in some of the classes. Okay. Sometimes you will see that there are religious people working, especially older females, older women, nuns, who maybe work in a nearby convent, who come in, who are even teachers or involved with the day-to-day running and management of the school. The concertado schools tend to have more activities, and therefore they have a bigger influence on the community. So there's also the emphasis not only on academic subjects, but also on the spiritual, the holistic growth. They have more sports, more activities, excursions. They probably have extra English classes, music, sports teams, a little bit more discipline. Sometimes they will wear uniforms. The public schools never have uniforms. Okay? So they may use uniforms. They are funded by the government. So the government pays, but they also ask the parents to pay a little donation, okay? And also the parents, yeah, normally it's a voluntary donation, a little bit of money to keep on more activities. So this is the case. Many of our schools are actually concertados or charter schools, many of them. The reason is that they think that by having a volunteer, they can provide better opportunities and better education for their students. Whereas sometimes in the public schools, they think, well, what we do is enough. We don't want to do any more. And then we have some private centres, which are fee-paying schools, where the students have to pay to attend. Normally they are faith-based, and they tend to have better facilities and uniforms and lots more extracurricular activities. The negative part of the private schools is that they promote themselves as being elite education. Their message is that if you pay, you will get a better education and your children will be with other children from elite families. Now, I think, personally, I don't agree with this, but this is something which happens. We don't have any fee-paying schools anymore. SAMS was the last private centre we worked with, and for the moment we're not working with them anymore. And this is very connected to what I said to you yesterday when I explained the expression to monetize things. And when we say to monetize things, it means that we are giving a particular monetary value to everything. Okay, and therefore a private school, in this case Sam's school, said, well, our students have to pay 400 euros a month to come to our school, and therefore we need to give them X number of hours with the volunteer to make sure that the parents are happy. And their attitude to the family was exactly the same. Their attitude to the families was, if the parents accept a volunteer, then the volunteer must give an exact number of hours to the family. And sometimes that can make things a little bit uncomfortable. To be honest, the families at Sam's school were absolutely fantastic. Okay, they were fantastic, but it was from the school that we had more problems. Let's have a look at the schools where you're going. Some of them, not all of them. And then you can see if they are concertados, rural. You can see that. Most of them are concertados, and they've each got their own particular things, okay? Their own particular features. So Corazonistas, we've been working with them, that is in Vitoria-Gasteiz. Fantastic school, one of the biggest schools that we work with, so 1,200 students in secondary. Okay, they're very interested in sports, very interested in their faith, so it is a practicing Catholic school. However, when a school is a concertado, they must accept people from any religion. So a concertado school cannot limit the students because of their religion. Okay. They're also very big on community projects, which is nice. They have a great international program with exchange programs. So if you're lucky enough, Sarah, they might say to you, we have a group of students from Germany. Would you like to come and meet them? Or, we are going on a trip to Barcelona. Would you like to come? But of course, in the Corazonistas, I can tell you they're very conscious about money. They will be very clear. If you want to come, you can come by bus, but you will have to pay for your own accommodation. Okay? Corazonistas are kind of famous for this, inviting people, but then telling you you have to pay for yourself. So check it out before you go. Okay, Corazonistas got a fantastic coordinator called Jose Luis, fantastic teaching staff, really, really nice, okay? Then we got Ricky, who's going up to Usturpe, which is an Ikastola in the Basque country, okay? You're in a town called Ibarra, which is next to another very famous town called Tolosa, Tolosa is absolutely fantastic. It's a brilliant place to live, but it's one of the most important centers of Basque language and Basque culture. So if your school is called an Ikastola, that means that one of its functions is to promote the Basque language and culture. And if you go in there, you are very, very lucky, because this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience, okay? The Basques are not violent separatists. There's no militant, there's no terrorism in the Basque country. And they are absolutely delighted that you would come to share their culture. And it's only about 20 kilometers from San Sebastian, which is one of the most cosmopolitan cities and one of the most beautiful cities in Spain. CRA Tabara, which is a very, very small school. It's only about 20 students. Only 20 students there. It's a rural school. So they've probably got only 2 classes, 10 students in each class, all different ages, and they are using a Montessori methodology. Because it's a rural school, they have some freedom to choose. All right. So what is Montessori? Does anybody know?
Yeah, we had this in school. It's like when the children like not teaching themselves, but doing learning because of their self-motivation, and you as a teacher support them to learn by their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, brilliant. So that's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. So if you go into a Montessori school, you might see the children playing with things, playing with puzzles, and being left. The teacher is there to help them if they need help, interact with them. But if they're doing things and very focused, they are sometimes left alone. I went to a Montessori school recently, and they had a dog who was in the classroom, and the dog came, the dog went, the children could play with the dog. They were smaller children. And so they learned how to do things, and they learned the limits of their capacities alone. So it's all about touching and doing things, especially at a very young age. It's really interesting. And at this school, it's the first year they're introducing the Montessori methodology. So Marta, who is the boss there, you know, she's really excited. Of these schools, I can tell you probably in Tabara and in Usturpe, those are probably going to have the youngest teachers, okay? The Ikastola schools, the Basque schools, tend to have much younger teachers. And they look like, you know, they don't look like teachers. You know, maybe they got some tattoos or some piercing, or, you know, they're just guys, people you're seeing come off the street. They are teachers, of course, they're trained teachers, but they're very, very informal, okay, in their outlook. And they have a wonderful habit at that particular school with the very small children. A couple of times a week, they have all the teachers and all the children just together playing inside. And if the children want to interact with the teachers, if they want to, you know, if they want to hug the teacher or hold his hand or her hand, it's absolutely permissible. Okay, it's just for the children to feel comfortable. So that's a really nice thing they do at the Icastolas too. San Francesco, who's going to San Francesco in Guadalajara?
Me.
You are, okay. Okay, this is a wonderful school. Absolutely, it is faith-based, and there is a religious, there's a vicar, a priest who is there at the school. But most of all, it is a community-based school, okay? This is the community school for this town. It's a small town, about 4,000 people, maybe more, 5,000, but it's near to the center of Valencia. It's like 30 minutes by metro. Half the people who work in the town work in Valencia, and the other half work locally. What you'll see in this school, Pilar, who's going to be your the school director, she will, I mean, because it's a community school, you, Tammy, are going to be expected to form part of that community. Okay, and you're suddenly going to have 400 new friends. Right, and you're going to love it. You need to let yourself go and become part of the community. They will do so many things for you and with you. Right, that's where Kudzi was last year. And we've had 5 volunteers there so far. They've been very happy. The Teresianas, Alexis, this again, one of our favorite schools. We got more, there's probably about 800 students there. It's a faith-based school right in the middle of the city, like Corazonistas. It's kind of traditional. You'll be with 2 people. My favorite person is Flor. Imagine that being called Flor, which means flower. So she's the head of primary teaching, the primary school, and English. They're going to treat you really, really well, of course. And they're really concerned as well about growth, about protecting their students. And the families, I know particularly that school, compared to Corazonistas, right? Corazonistas in Vitoria, all the kids turn up by bicycle, okay? So there's a huge kind of parking area for bicycles and scooters and all sorts of things. And that's because the city has a lot of cycle lanes in Vitoria-Gasteiz. In Teresianas, it's a bit more traditional, so that all the students come to school with their parents. So you get there at 9 o'clock in the morning and you cannot move. There's so many people. Sometimes for each child, it's not only the parents, it's the grandparents as well. So, and that's every day. So there's a huge amount of parents and grandparents waiting outside the school at the Teresianas. Okay. And finally, we've got Leliana, which is also absolutely fantastic. This is where Yesit is and will continue to be this year. It's a small school. It's got lovely equipment. It's nicely equipped with a swimming pool and sports courts. It's not very big. It's in a residential area. Again, it's about 30 minutes into the center of Valencia. So you will be able to meet Lena. You'll be able to meet Tammy, of course, and Yesit, and the other people who are coming to the area frequently. So there's a metro station very, very close. And they've got a uniform, which is kind of, wow, I didn't expect this school to have such a strict uniform. Most of the people live in the same development, and so they all know each other. Families are really, really supportive, very, very friendly. And there's a few other schools like Paula, who's going to be at La Salle in Alcora, which is just next to Castellón. It's going to be very, very similar to San Francesco. It's a concertado. You will hear people speak in the Valencian language, and you will find that suddenly you have lots and lots of friends, because Alcora is not very big. Obviously, it's next to Castellón, and it's about 1 hour from Valencia. So you'll be able to come in and see people here frequently, okay? And all these people, all these schools are kind of quite flexible, all right? And they're flexible in the sense that, you know, if you're meant to be coming on the 10th of September, but it turns out something happens and you can't come until the 20th of September, I don't think any of them would have any kind of problem with that, okay? And the same at the end of term, if you decide you want to go home for Christmas and you have to leave a few days before, they will not mind, okay? As long as it's not a week before or 2 weeks before, then they might get a bit upset, okay? We could say that the school in Bilbao, the Sagrada Corazon of Bilbao, where Sam is going to be going with the other Sarah. That's also very similar to Corazonistas. I know that school, lovely staff. You can see Bilbao. It's just on the outskirts. There's a metro connection to the center of Bilbao. And they've got a big thing about values, about celebrating things like peace festivals, which is also a nice thing. Okay. Any other schools we haven't covered yet? Anybody else's school which you haven't mentioned? The CRA Campos, where you're going, Clara. Oh, Clara's gone. Okay, but that's also a fantastic place where their emphasis is not on Montessori, their emphasis is on doing things outside. So all the children get involved with gardening every day, every day. Okay. So all fantastic schools, you're really going to enjoy being there. And they're all really looking forward. We have 2 language models as well. We have 2 language models at schools as well. And this is really important. They will expect you to understand the difference between a normal school where the students learn English or learn German from primary school going up into secondary school, and they might have 2 to 4 hours a week of English and or German. The teachers are non-native, so the teachers tend to have a very, very thick Spanish accent. They tend to use the books. So they're teaching English from a book or teaching German from a book, and the students do a lot of writing, a lot of grammar exercises. And in fact, you would notice this, that if you give private classes, some of the parents will be saying, yeah, I want you to help him or her with the grammar exercises which they have for homework. And it's endless, you know, it's sometimes just too many books. And we work on the language levels, which begin in A1 to C2. I'm sure you all understand this is the European framework of languages, which means that a beginner would have a level A0, and then A1, which is low elementary, A2, which is low intermediate or beginner, B1, which is intermediate, B2, which is upper intermediate, C1, which is advanced, and C2, which is proficiency. So when you hear about the school, about the levels at which language is being taught, that's the meaning, from A1, which is the lowest, to C2, which is the highest. We then have what we call, sorry, we're having an internet incident. Okay, we have an internet problem with our coverage right now. Okay, it seems to be back. Okay, other schools follow a bilingual model. That is sometimes called CLIL. And CLIL means content, language, integrated learning. Okay, content and language integrated learning, and sometimes those are called bilingual schools. And this means that some of the subjects are taught in English. And some of the subjects are taught by the subject teachers. So in geography or in history, the history teacher is suddenly informed that next year you're going to teach your subject in English. And the teacher says, I don't know English. They say, well, here's the book, teach it. And it's not a complete, it's not a fantastic model, because sometimes the subject teachers do not know enough English to teach it. In those cases, if you're in a bilingual school, you would be more asked to help with some of those subjects, not only language itself, okay? So it's integrated, subjects in English. And there's some opposition from parents. Some of the parents don't like this idea. They don't like it because they don't understand. You have to understand, the Spanish children get given a lot of homework. A lot of homework. And normally the parents help the children with the homework. And if the parents understand the homework in Spanish, that's fine. But if they don't understand it in English, they get frustrated. Okay. The thing about some of the things which you will do at school, this is what I mean to be proactive. Okay, so these are some of the things which you will do at school. So these include things like storytelling, if you were with very small children. Why? Because the teacher says, I could read the story, but it's nicer if Alexis or Paula or Nele reads the story. Okay, because the children will hear a different accent. In this case, you have to learn about storytelling. And storytelling has many things which you think about it. One, what story are you going to tell? Two, what does the book look like? Is it a book that you open and just read the text? Or is it a storybook which has some pictures and colors which you can show the children? Okay, how do you have the children sitting down in front of you? Maybe they'll sit on the floor and you can sit on the floor too. Other things you'll be asked to do is giving instructions. So that maybe is an activity or a game, and the teacher will ask you to give the instructions because they want students to hear your voice, not their Spanish pronunciation. Speaking practice. We'll look at that in a moment. There are many things you can do. When it comes to speaking practice or conversation classes, this is what Yesit and in fact Kudzi said yesterday, when they take a small group of students out to just speak with a small group whilst the rest of the class is going on. Playing games, easy games like Simon Says, musical chairs, presentations. These are presentations which I would like you to prepare now before you come. And when you're here in the staff room, when you're there at the school, well, this week I'm going to do a presentation. If you are able to produce a presentation each week, this would be fantastic. And the schools would be really grateful. Extracurricular activities, music, sports, dance. Maybe there are things at the school which are the same as your interests or hobbies, and you can do that. Okay, Sarah, yes.
Sorry, I didn't get it. What should the presentations be about?
I'll tell you in a moment, but they should be about you and your country and your community.
just like one a week. So like I already did a presentation about myself, but when I need to do one every week, is it also about me? Because I don't know what to tell every week
No.
about myself.
Maybe not once a week, once a month. All right, once a month. I think once a week is a bit much. All right, once a month. Okay, and then you have a collection. Well, what would they be about? We'll look at this in a moment, actually. But you know, it could be about, first of all, about you, your family, and your school. The next month would be about your country. Okay. The next month might be about animals. Okay. The next month might, and
Okay.
you know, we'd like you to include things like your favorite animals. And with a presentation, it's always a nice idea to structure your presentation. So you start with some questions. Okay. You start maybe with 6 questions. Ask, if they're asking about you, the presentation about you, the questions might be, how old am I? How many brothers and sisters do you think I have? What's my favorite food? Okay. Do you think I live in a house or in a flat? Okay, so 6 questions, and just the children will have enough curiosity. So, okay, we're going to just answer together. They write down their answers, and then they watch the presentation, and then you have the same 6 questions at the end, and they can see if they got them right or if they got them wrong. Okay. If you're talking about yourself, they do not have to be very personal questions. What the children love is to see, wow, this is your town. Wow, this was your school. Wow, you have a cat. This is amazing. They will ask 1,000 questions about the cat or the dog. Okay. What's your favorite food? Oh, wow, they can't even imagine what your favorite food, especially if it's something like quinoa, you know, they'll think it's going to be something typically Spanish. So these are little things to get them excited. So a few questions at the beginning. Do the presentation very slowly and repeating. This is one thing that I do very well. I speak slowly and I repeat myself very, very often because I've given hundreds of presentations. Why? Because I want the people listening to understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so with children, even more so. And then I'd ask at the end to have those same questions so that the children can see, and you can see, if they've had difficulties listening to you. You would typically be, you would spend time with 6 or 8 different class groups at the school, not always with the same group. And therefore you can use your presentation many times during a month, over a month, okay? Okay, and then you might find yourself doing some exam preparation. All right, which is certain times a year when there's an English exam, please, you know, the kids have got to do some writing, would you help them? So more than writing perfect English, Spanish schools do not teach writing as a skill. They learn to write sentences and to use words in English, Spanish, but they do not teach how to write an essay in a particular order with a particular structure. And so that's something you can help them with. Okay. When we talk about games, well, these are games. Simple Simon, Buzz, musical chairs, hangman. Let's do a quiz, a little quiz. Put the children into groups. I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm going to ask you some questions. Do you remember the presentation I showed you about animals from my country, animals from Germany. Do you remember? Today we're going to do a quiz. And with a quiz, you ask them a question, you give them 3 possible answers, and they decide which is the best one. So there's a little bit of competition. They're working together. Your quiz can be about anything. Okay? Crosswords. You can do a crossword with them as well. You can play Pictionary, Scattergories. You can play any of these popular board games which can be adapted to working with children. Okay? Obviously, you're going to be careful when you're with children. You don't want anybody to be embarrassed. You don't want to play a game where the same person always comes last. For that reason, it's better to have people working in groups or teams, okay? And not to have individual contests. Now we're actually going to look now at a specific class activity. So here we go. We want our children to speak, and we're going to give them this picture. What does it mean? What do we do? Any ideas about what we would do with this picture?
Maybe to start a presentation and ask them what could the presentation be about, and starting a first conversation with them.
Absolutely. So it's a way of starting a conversation. Anything else? Imagine you've got very, very small children. They're only like 4 years old.
When they describe the picture, this is what we did when we were young. It was always like, oh, there's a picture. Could you describe it? What do you see?
It's 4 years old. The 4 years, of course, that's excellent. But imagine it's a very small child, very limited contact with English. Obviously describe what things do you think that the small child, a young child, would be able to describe in this picture? Probably only a couple of things, like the colors, okay? And in these colors, we've got blue, and we've got red, and we've got yellow. I mean, we don't expect a 4-year-old to be able to say the difference between light blue and sea blue, okay? Or even to know the word gray. But with the very small child, we would show them the picture and maybe say, can you show me something which is yellow? Can you show me something which is blue? Can you show me something which is red? And physically, the child would put their finger on the yellow thing, on the blue thing. Okay? And then the second part, once you've practiced a few times, is when instead of asking, can you show me something, you put your finger on the yellow and say, what color is this? And you put it on the blue. What color is this? So that the child starts to speak. Okay? And from that, you can create a meaningful sentence. The sand is yellow. The sea is green. The sky is blue. Okay? And introduce more things. Obviously, as the knowledge of English goes up, we can get a lot more from this picture, because it's the picture, the things we can see, but also the things we can't see. So imagine we give this to a child and we say, holiday. They might understand holiday, vacations. Do you like vacations? Everybody goes on vacations. when you go on vacations, do you go with your family? It's a yes, no question. So it's an easy question. Do you go with your family? And they probably just got with family, vacation, holiday. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, of course I do. Now, if it was a slightly higher level, you would say the same question differently. Who do you go on holiday with? Same question, same answer, family. It's just a little bit more complex, the question. Okay? You're then going to ask, okay, the child wants to interact with this photograph. Here's the picture. I want you to draw your family on the beach. That'll take them 5 minutes whilst they draw. There's me and my sister and my mum and my auntie. Okay, now add some things that you take to the beach with you. Oh, it's like a ball, a bottle of water, a towel. So they're drawing all these things on. And then you're going to start testing them because you haven't used the words. What is this? It's a ball. Can you write down the word ball next to it? Okay, so they're getting a little bit of writing practice as well. Okay. You could also do what we call, beyond that, obviously we can build up, but just using the one picture, we can use this with many, many different levels. Okay. So we've got a whole bunch of these prompts which we can use, and I will send you. I will send them to you. And these are very, very useful if you are asked to work with small groups outside of a classroom. So you can see here from the easiest part, which is show me the sand. What colors can you see? Draw a ship, a green ship. Now, can you draw your family on the beach? Who are they? Oh, that's my sister, that's my auntie, that's my mum. What are they doing? They're chocolate cola, they're eating, they're swimming. You know, suddenly the child, because it's what we call affectivity. Once what the child has involved themselves and their family in this setting which you have given to them, and they are suddenly motivated to explain because it's their family, right? Then what do they do? Do you like the beach? What other things do you find at the seaside? Now, this might be an older person, an older student who thinks about, well, yeah, the time I did go to Benidorm or the time I did go to Brighton in England. What are the other things you saw at the seaside? There's restaurants and hotels and train stations and airports, lots of people, and that might lead into a discussion. When you go on holiday to the seaside, is it better to go with your friends or with your family? Ask that to a 15 or 16-year-old. And they'll enter into a meaningful conversation. So what we're saying is a very, very small prompt, a very, very small piece of material like our picture there, but it can be used in multiple ways to communicate and to engage with the student. Okay, where do you sleep when you go on holiday? Where would you like to sleep? What would be your perfect holiday? You get a few kids together, perfect holiday. Where would you go? Who would you go with? How would you get there? What would you eat? Okay, who would you meet? Imagine, you can give all the info. Imagine a famous person you meet on your holiday. Who would you like to meet? Okay, and then finally, tell me about your best experience on holiday. That is a more advanced level. You need a certain amount of vocabulary and grammar to discuss this. But we can use the same picture for everything, for all levels, for children, small children and adults. They will all be able to interact with this. Okay. When we spoke about presentations, So these are some of the presentations I mentioned to you. You and your world. That means your community, all right? That's really important because you are, you know, you're so important in this as a volunteer. You're bringing in your culture. But remember that one of the things which will make you feel good about being abroad is that you are representing your community. Whatever sense you have about community, all right? Whether it's physically the place you live or it's because you belong to a particular group, whether it's gender, whether it's ethnicity, nationality, language, origins, anything, you represent people other than yourself, okay? So you and your world, your country, music and sounds of your country. Look, we could even use AI, artificial intelligence, and I'm going to show you how to do this in a moment, all right? Music and sounds of your country. That's an interesting one. That's a really interesting one because children have to listen, not only look. Animals from your country, languages from your country. Are there any other languages? Your family, if you want to and you feel comfortable, this might be specifically, or no, very often our New Zealand, Australian, Canadian families or volunteers, they can tell the whole story of their family from when they immigrated from Europe or from Asia to that country. And so they become quite involved in looking for photographs. And the children are completely enlightened by this. It's a completely different thing for them. Okay, let's see if we can see. I'll tell you, this is a video. This is a video. If you are really, really excited and you really, really felt kind of, what's the word, adventurous, you might be able to do this with a bunch of older students, okay? I'm not saying you could definitely do it, but you might want to see it. Okay, so what we're going to do is, when I was having lunch today, I was just playing with this app which lets you make videos, okay? Which lets you invent videos using artificial intelligence. I don't know if you've used this, have used anything like this. Let's see if it works, first of all. I'm not sure it's going to, it's not going to, that's a shame. I'll try and show it to you tomorrow, okay? Because the link is not complete. But basically, you can create a video using artificial intelligence. And I think this is going to be really useful. I think this is going to be really, really useful in the future for creating content which can be used in classes. It's dynamic. It's a real video, and I'll sort it out and I'll send it to you so you can see it, or we will see it in tomorrow's presentation. Okay, so this is what I mean by presentations, and presentations can be based, you know, they can be slideshows with lots of photograph, or they could be PowerPoint presentations like I'm using today. It can be anything you like. The important thing is that it has a format which is very clear. It should not be a 2-hour presentation like mine, because nobody will listen to you for 2 hours. Okay? A presentation can be 15 minutes maximum, no more than that. And 5 minutes is also fine. And once you've done the presentation, you can go back and do it again to make sure they've understood. Normally, when you're teaching, one of the keys is the rule of 3, which means if you want to explain something, you need to repeat it 3 times. It has to be explained 3 times for the listener to understand. So you have to tell it 3 times. Sometimes you're going to use 3 different ways, but people generally need to hear things 3 times. So that might be before the presentation, you tell them about the content, you then show them the presentation, and then you repeat the presentation, or you just summarize the presentation again. All right, Sarah, you have something to say.
Yeah, I have a question because I've already done my presentation and I'm not sure yet if the game I want to play with the group going to work because maybe I have to speak up to the coordinator or maybe you got a plan of it. The students will be from the age from 12 to 18 and the game is something I don't know if you heard about it. One lie and two truth answers about yourself and the other ones have to guess which one is the lie. And this I play to get to know also the students. But I'm not sure if the 12-year-old students can play this game up to their English level. So also if they can do it in English or even German.
Well, absolutely. I think it's a really important one. I know it's a very popular and it's a very good game to play. I think there's two things we'd have to think about. First of all, I think why I would introduce that game more on a quiz basis, okay, to give either or, okay, two truths and a lie or two lies and a truth. Yeah, on a quiz basis. Look, I'm going to give you 3 options. Only one is true. Only one is true. Okay, so I think that would be a very good game to play. I think playing it with the class, asking them to invent their own possibilities is more of a problem. Probably because they don't have that much life experience to be able to invent a lot of strange things. But more important, all these children know each other, right? So they will immediately know. Now, they could ask you if you were the person having to guess. So you might put them into groups and say, each of you, I will try to guess. I'm not sure it's a good idea if they try to guess from each other because they know each other. But the only thing I would say is I would not introduce the expression two truths. Yeah, I would not introduce the expression lie or untruth. Okay, I would keep to very positive language. All right, because we would not want any kind of interpretation that the students are being encouraged to say something which is not true. Right? Only because lion has a negative connotation. But it's a great game. We just have to, very often, your game's a fantastic one to use. Simplify it. Okay? It's got to be simplified. All right? So one of our fantastic volunteers from Austria, no, from Canada, actually, a family were Austrian, came and did this, and it was fantastic. But the first question was, because she was a sports player, right? So her first question was, what was my most recent injury? Did I have, a strained shoulder? Or did I have the cruciate ligaments? Did I break my cruciate ligaments? Or did I break the bones in my hand? Okay. Now, the children would understand hand and bones. They did not understand a sprained shoulder or the cruciate ligaments in your knee. So it was just too complex. All right. It was too complex for them to understand. And all I said to her was go back and simplify. All right. Absolutely. Those games which you bring in are great. Here's a couple more activities we could do. Just read them. Okay, if we look at the first one, the miming game. So mime means to act something out with no words. That's a really easy thing to do. Imagine we had been, you're with a primary class and you've already done animals and you've done the weather and maybe you've done some emotions. Yeah. And so maybe you're going to give, group one, okay, little groups, okay, you're going to give them a piece of paper which says, the lion is sad because it's raining. So the lion is sad because it's raining. So we hope they will understand lion, sad, raining. And at that age, they will have those kind of connectors like because. So it should be easy to remember. And those children, that one or two children, are going to mime the situation of a lion who's sad because it's raining. And the other kids are going to love it, trying to guess, what animal is this? And this animal is singing, shouting, crying. Oh, he's sad, unhappy. Okay, sad, right. And the words we want them to get is lion, sad, and raining. So it's quite a complex mime. Okay, so the kids from the other group write down the words they think, or they shout them out. You write them on the board until we solve what it is. Or for a slightly older group, on the board, you would write down, the number of words and a line for each word. So they have to get the exact sentence. Whoever gets the exact sentence gets the point. And then it's the next group who are going to mime, the chicken is eating a very hot sausage. Okay, what? Oh, right, we understand sausage and it's hot and eating and it's a chicken. Now, these kids have got to be chickens eating sausages. They're going to have a great time acting it out. Okay, right. And then we've got, for more difficult, working with music and songs, of course. Now, you know the songs that kids like. I don't know the songs that kids like. But you need to choose. You're going to choose a song which is going to be simple enough with the sounds and simple enough with the structure, and not a very long song. It's not going to be Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, is it? It's going to be something like Ed Sheeran or some other one of these other people with simple lines where you write them down, you take the lyrics, you cut them up into lines, ask the kids, sit down in groups, play the song, they put them in a right order. Okay? The nice thing there, you can listen as many times as you like until everybody gets it right. How many lines would you have? 12. No more than 12. Okay? So you have to choose a song which is repetitive, which is easy to listen to, and where the words can be heard. Okay? Right, so those are more activities. And what I'm going to show you now, so these are very simple activities. I will send you links where you can find them. I will send you the worksheets, these worksheets. Okay, if you go into school with your worksheets saying, look, I would like to use these with the small conversation groups, win, win, win. They will absolutely love them. Okay, you don't have to go in saying, I've made a video using artificial intelligence like I did, and suddenly that particular day the link doesn't work. That's a problem. It was too complex. My idea was too complex. If I go in with this picture, that's not complex at all. I can project it. I can take a printout. I can plastify. I can laminate it and take in this picture. I can ask children to copy it in their copybooks, whatever. So the simpler is often the best. Right. You can also do project activities, a mentoring program. Okay. These are things which are beyond classroom activities. And this might not be in the first term, and we probably have to look at this in the second term. Have you got projects or ideas you would like to implement in the school? A mentoring program, very difficult, but you would be asking older children to come and help younger children with their English. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Asking the older children to come and read with the younger children. That will make the older children, especially secondary students, understand really how proficient they are. An e-twinning program. This is more complex. It's actually become very complex, which means, you know, a class of maybe at a school, you know, in Germany or the United Kingdom, putting them in contact with a school here, and they can interact a couple of times a term via Zoom or send each other information about each other. It is actually a problem now, and it's become more problematic because of data protection. Okay, so it's not my favorite anymore. Contacting other volunteers at other schools. That might be interesting. A bit more anonymous. Okay, but imagine, you know, Sarah, you were able to get some kind of video link or a Zoom session with Alexis. And you want the kids, the same way that they asked you questions and you gave a presentation, they could be asking Alexis. They don't know if Alexis is in Valladolid or if she's in Manchester. That's a nice one. Doing a newspaper once a term. Ask your classes to write something, a small thing. You collect them, put them all together. Do a printout. Show the teachers what you've done. That is something you've done alone. You can publish it online or just print it out once. A school play, some sketches, some drama. If you feel comfortable doing this. This is an important thing. I think most of you should feel comfortable being able to do a newspaper. Not all of you will feel comfortable because you don't feel comfortable using technology, because you don't feel comfortable working with theatre or drama, or because you can't play a musical instrument. Well, don't do it. But doing a newspaper, that's always a good one. Sam, for example, had to do this blog, and it just became a really hard, drawn-out task, which in the end was insisted upon by the school to the point where Sam and the kids and everybody else was completely hostile to the idea. So don't make it something which they're forced to do. A reading group, that's nice. Look at some of the ideas. We like reading group. There's something you can do with reading which is really fun beyond a certain age, where you get the students, I'd say beyond the age of 11, 12, 13, get one of the students to say, today you are going to read. You are the teacher. Okay? And they will immediately and instinctively start using their teacher voice. And they will want to be in a higher position than the rest of the children. And they will use their English or their German more effectively, because all of a sudden they are focusing on communicating like they've seen teachers doing. It's an interesting thing to do, what we call in Spanish, what we call in English, psychodrama, where you invite somebody to take on somebody else's personality. Okay, you be the teacher, you be your mum. Okay, You are your mum. We're going to ask you some questions. You're going to ask your mum some questions about you. Why is it good? Because you need to start talking, not in the first person, but in the third person. You have to start thinking about your answers. You have to start empathizing with your mother. Okay, so these are some more ideas, some advice I'm going to give you. Some advice I'm going to give you. Plan your activities. Speak to the teachers. Research. Work with groups in class. If you've got 30 kids in a class and you divide them into groups of 3, you've then only got 10 active units, not 30. Okay? And if you divide them into 2 groups of 15, you've only got 2. It's brilliant. Okay? So groups. Work with groups. Divide the children into groups. Don't leave children to work alone. It's never a nice feeling. It's always nicer to work with somebody else. Check your material and equipment, especially you produce this absolutely fantastic presentation with music. First of all, there's no projector. There's no presentation. Secondly, your computer, there's a presentation. It's not connected to the loudspeakers. There's no audio. Well, if you're working on music, that's a bit of a problem. You might want to take in your own little Bluetooth speaker. Every school I go into has got problems with connection, network, computer rooms, everything, always. So you really need to check things out beforehand. Keep activities short. Okay? Short activities which you can repeat. 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Prepare your voice. How are you speaking? Are you speaking slowly? Are you giving the students time to talk to you? And how do you keep order? What happens if you have problems? And plan B. Plan B is always to have a game, a little game, a spelling game, something like that, which is easy to do, which you can, if something isn't working, and I promise you, of the things that you plan, some things will not work. My presentation didn't work today, okay? Because I couldn't play you the video. You have to have something else to do. What did I do? I just said I'll speak a little bit slower about the other stuff. Okay. More volunteers. Okay, let's speak to somebody else. This person actually, it's the last thing we're going to do today. This person was actually in a very small community in the province of León. León, which is next to Palencia and next to Zamora. Beautiful, beautiful place, León. What did she say?
I'm from New Zealand and I'm living in Viablino in La Piana, and I'm really enjoying it. It's beautiful. There's snow, it's warm, and yeah, it's really good. My family's amazing.
Okay, so she said she's living in, let's listen again.
I'm from New Zealand and I'm living in Viablino in La Piana, and I'm really enjoying it. It's beautiful. There's snow, it's warm, and yeah, it's really good. My family's amazing.
All right, did you hear that, where she's living? In Viablino. Viablino is the last, most distant, most remote town in the north of the region, the north of the province. It's very cold, but she said she likes the snow. And at that time of year, it wasn't that cold. But nobody wants to go to Viablino. Nobody. But she loved it. Okay? The people were nice. People were friendly. It's a good place. It's a once-in-a-lifetime place for her. And then next one we can see, Karen from Australia. Can you see the animals she's talking about with her presentation? It's a typical Australian animals. So there's a very big spider and a very dangerous snake. And so if you say, well, I've got snakes and stuff. No, they're really dangerous, poisonous snakes, or bears in the forests, in the Black Forest of Germany. Wow. You know, then they become obviously more interested, okay? So there we are, in a classroom, giving a presentation about animals. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to finish now. It's 7 o'clock. You have been very patient, and I'm going to stop the recording now.